Well, here we go. Another day, another global crisis in a seemingly endless series of global crises of unprecedented scale and proportion. And you know what? In 24 hours, all of the normalcy Normans of the world will forget about it, and they will be lighting up my comment section telling me that nothing bad ever happens. Well, this is the writing on the wall. This is the largest outage of its sort in human history. 1 billion bricked computers that all require manual tinkering in order to fix. Now, you would think that that would be simple, but because we have bureaucracy and corporatocracy, those typically come with a lot of red tape, and they have standardized procedures, and as such, they don't like individuals meddling with the computer system. So some of these problems are going to persist, they're saying, for weeks. We're going to go into the extent of the damage in just a moment. If you're wondering what the hell is going on, basically, CrowdStrike, which is a cybersecurity firm, had a update that they rolled out worldwide. That was really smart, wasn't it? You would think that they would do it piecemeal just to test it out, and maybe that's going to be the lesson that's learned here. Now, some people are speculating it was a cyber attack and they're trying to keep it under wraps. I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon this time. I actually think that this might be far more sinister. This could potentially be a dry run or a rehearsal for some sort of contrived event, and I'm just going to leave it at that. A lot of people are speculating about how is it possible that they could disrupt the elections, maybe not even the elections. Is it possible that they could find a way to disrupt a collapsing stock market, or disrupt a war that's not going their way? How can they possibly impose martial law and try to restrict the rights and freedoms of individuals for the sake of the greater good? That good old noble lie. Well, I suspect that this is a rehearsal for something much, much bigger. We were predictively primed for this over a year ago with the movie Don't Leave the World Behind, as well as many other World Economic Forum, cyber polygon exercises that simulate these types of things. And the irony here is that this whole event was caused by CrowdStrike, which is a cybersecurity firm which is tasked with preventing problems like this. So it makes you wonder, was this intentional? Was this a dry run? Was it a social experiment? Now, you guys are not going to believe me, but I have the receipts to prove this. About a half an hour after the RNC convention last night, I talked to a friend on Telegram, didn't call them. I was going to say call, but Telegram, you just leave voice messages. And I said, you know, we were analyzing the Trump speech and all of the cultural and social complexities that revolve around that. And I told him, you know what we haven't heard about in a long period of time? And that was cybersecurity threats. And with black swan events, it's always something that blindsides us. You know, we think that we're watching everything, we're looking at all the possible threats, doing our risk analysis, and it's always something that blindsides us. You know, we're thinking about pandemics, H5N1, a nuclear war, economic crises. And even though we've talked about cybersecurity threats ad nauseum on this channel for years, it's something that, you know, I've just realized last night that we haven't talked about this in a while. And I distinctly said in that telegram that I sent that I think that's going to be the next big crisis. That could be one of the things that prevents, if there really is a genuine interest in preventing Trump from taking office, then what better way to do it than some sort of cybersecurity thing that compromises either the voting system or just causes such a chaotic series of events that it prevents, they have to impose martial law and they have to do some sort of postponing of the election. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. In fact, I think that Trump's the guy now. I think he's the guy they want, or the guy that some very strong lobbyist groups want in power for reasons that we're going to get into later in today's update. It revolves around Iran. They're beating the war drums there very hard right now. But that was just, you know, and then of course, half an hour later, we get the news that the biggest outage in human history has occurred of an IT infrastructure. So I just found that was kind of one of those moments where you're in the zone. Anyways, let's talk about what the impact of this was. Now, this was such a widespread outage that 1 billion computers were bricked. And as I said, these all have to be manually rebooted. Okay, so you can't just, it's not like something that can be mass rolled out and fixed. You actually have to go into each individual computer, which would be fine if there wasn't all this bureaucratic red tape that prevented individuals from going and fixing their own computers. As such, many of these problems will persist for weeks. In terms of the services that were impacted, a lot of e-commerce services were impacted. Visa, Bell, banks, online banking. In some places, there was a complete shutdown of banking systems. The London Stock Exchange was impacted. Of course, airlines were heavily impacted by this. And now they're saying that people are storming to the ATMs trying to get money out, which is causing even more problems in some places. So this outage disrupted services across banks, media outlets, supermarkets, airlines in multiple regions, including Australia, USA, and Europe. And interestingly, you know who wasn't affected by this? The Russians and the Chinese, and I'm guessing the North Koreans and Iranians as well. They all have their own internet. They run on Linux software, I believe. The Chinese probably have their own software that it runs on. In Russia, it's Linux. And I'm quite certain that North Korea has their own firewall of sorts, as do the Iranians, who would not be reliant on, or at least I would hope that they would not be reliant on American systems and types of software. So this is the pitfalls of a hyper-centralized, technologically dependent society, is that you have to deal with stuff like this. And countries that are sanctioned from this are actually insulated from these types of crises. Now, if Russia was still on SWIFT, I don't know, would they be impacted? That's something to look into. One of Europe's largest medical care facilities, located in Germany, has been impacted by the cyber outage. A German university medical center canceled all elective procedures around the globe. There was 110,000 scheduled commercial flights today. 1,400 flights were canceled globally, but in the immediate aftermath of this, you can go and see on Flight Radar, basically a global aviation activity ground to a halt. And it's definitely a sight to see. There's videos of it online. Payment systems were impacted in different parts of the world. 3 major U.S. airlines, American, United, and Delta, grounded all flights due to the outage. It affected services worldwide, not just in the United States. Australian authorities announced an emergency crisis meeting over the outages. 911 is not working in, I think, 6 states in the United States. Scandinavian Airlines has reported an operational problem affecting the booking system. The Israeli government, who got a wake-up call in Tel Aviv last night from the Houthis, as it turns out. It was, in fact, a drone strike. Last night, when I was doing the video, when I got the notification mid-video, I said it was a car bomb. It turns out everybody knows now it was a drone strike, okay, from the Houthis, which has drastic geopolitical implications in the Middle East that we'll talk about later on in today's video. Israeli government agencies announced an error in the operation of computer systems. Hospitals, banks, post offices, emergency systems encountered technical problems. ATMs were not functioning properly, card readers not functioning. Japan recorded a major glitch in its check-in system for domestic flights. Companies like Nintendo and McDonald's are not able to provide services and users with services across the network in a variety of different locations across Japan. The Baltic Hub container terminal of the Polish port of Gdansk, one of the largest in the Baltic Sea, reported operational problems due to a global outage. The Dutch airline KLM reported that due to a failure, it is impossible to service flights. Banks in Kenya are reporting technical problems with their computer systems. The Haval Airport in Prague reports flight disruptions. There's widespread computer outages on U.S. hospital EMR systems. The USA's Social Security Administration has closed all offices, affecting online services. The Justice Department and Veteran Affairs face significant IT issues. The Energy Department's website is offline, and the FAA is monitoring the situation closely. And President Biden has been briefed and in contact with the impacted entities, whatever that actually means at this point in time. In addition to that, this was not the only cybersecurity threat or cybersecurity update threat. Microsoft's cloud platform Azure also experienced a widespread outage, crippling its IT infrastructure globally. This also contributed to a lot of the transportation, healthcare, finance, and media outages that we've seen in the last 24 hours. So this was massive, guys. This should be a wake-up call. In the very least, people, make sure you have some cash on you for times like these, because you just never know. Usually these things are going to be short-lived, but they're going to be short-lived until it's a permanent, persistent problem, which is the result of an actual cyber attack, okay? This is just a zygote of a problem compared to what the problem could be if these systems were actually hacked into. That could happen, okay? Just imagine this on a larger scale and more persistent. Wherever you are, if you're waiting to catch a flight, that's where you're going to stay. In fact, if we see a global cyber attack on Microsoft or one of these systems that is going to affect it indefinitely, then you need to just cancel your flight plans, and you need to find, if that ever happens, get a rental car and just start driving home if you can, okay? And unless you're overseas, then I guess you're screwed. You're stuck there. So this is just a problem that people are going to have to plan for in the future as we become more interconnected and centralized. The technopoly becomes more centralized because it's just more efficient. It's easier. But you would think that they would roll these things out piecemeal and not globally. But I guess hopefully lessons will be learned for this. I suspect that this is part of some clandestine ploy to roll out some stricter government regulation or CBDCs, internet ID. I don't know. There's something going on here, I suspect. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just incompetency and a failure of the system. But, the timing of this is very suspicious as well. And almost as if to prime us to get used to these types of things happening. So when the big one happens, now that they've done this social experiment, they can basically extrapolate what the extent of the damage will be in the case that we see a much more widespread outage. I mean, just think about that. Not being able to go and buy food, right? Not being able to get gas because everything is credit, debit nowadays. Nobody carries cash anymore. Not being able to just, go out and do anything for that matter. Never mind a lockdown, there's just not going to be any reason to go out. The only way you're going to be able to acquire stuff is by stealing it. And that's what it ultimately will come to, will be looting. No more banking, no more online banking, no more accessing your stock portfolio, okay? No more internet, period. So never mind stock portfolios. No more internet, period. No more, and just imagine how that's going to affect military systems and the ability of national security. Okay, how that's going to affect 911 emergency services, hospital, the administration of care, the administration of prescription medications. This is why you have to have all these boxes checked. They are, for people with eyes to see, they're telling us, they're sending us signals like, look, we're giving you all these signs that the shit's going to hit the fan. And when they actually start burning their 0 days, I'm talking about they as in the Axis against us in order to create chaos here. This is going to look like a walk in the park, what we just experienced, okay? And some of the scenes coming out of these airports with the attendees screaming, I've never seen that before. I've never seen that level of stress. So you take an already stressed population as a result of politics, political division, and war, and just inflation and the cost of living, and you throw one of these situations in there, even if it is short-lived, And even if it is a relatively innocuous in terms of not creating total global chaos and not being enduring, it's still going to trigger people in a lot of ways. And I think we've seen a taste, okay? Just imagine if this persisted for several days. And in some places it will, because again, these have to be manually retooled and have the driver removed and all that stuff. So all the more reason to prepare. We see some consolidation in the price of gold today, some retracement down to the 2,400 level. This is expected. This always happens. It's always 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And what that means is it could be plunge protection. It could be trying to paper over the problem. Interestingly, the price of gold dips. Well, you have this worldwide internet outage, which of course makes 0 sense whatsoever, which tells you that maybe they're doing it intentionally, they being the people with the capability to do the shorts and to manipulate the market in such a way that can bring the price down artificially for a short period of time, but they're not going to be able to suppress it for long. Now, there's a lot of other news, especially stuff going on in the Middle East. We have nuclear power plants leaking radiation in Russia, allegedly. We have the situation in the Middle East, which is developing. You have Anthony Blinken coming out today and saying that Iran is 1 to 2 weeks away from getting a nuclear weapon, coupled with all of the rhetoric that we're hearing from the upcoming administration. Well, so people think, people are quite confident that Trump's going to win it. And I'm going to give a whole analysis of my take of the RNC speech, which was incredibly impassioned, very heartfelt, but there's a problem, okay? There is a problem, and we are going to address that problem in a dedicated video. I just wanted to give you guys an update. By the time I roll out this video, I'm sure there'll be another crisis that will hopefully motivate us to continue to prepare. Get all your preps, CanadianPreparedness.com. We did have minor disruptions, but we're back up and running again. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe. Canadian Prepper out.